Welcome to Blue Talks.
Bale, sit please. Thank you. Bale, water. Bring me some water, please. Thank you, buddy. Good boy. Sit, please. Down. Stay. Hi, it's great to be back at MIT. Wonderful place, wonderful university. This is my service dog, Bale, and he means the world to me. I'm here today to talk about connectivity. There was a very famous man who once said that a house divided against itself cannot stand. Does anybody know who that man was? Abraham Lincoln, right? Well, I got to tell you, there was a time when I was involved with addicts. I had addicts in my life. I was codependent and I was going to rescue the wounded bird, right? I lost 20 years, that's 2 decades, of my life in codependent relationships. And I'm going to tell you, when you are in a codependent relationship, you are sicker than the addict themselves. They have the pills, they have the drugs to numb the pain. You're the one that calls the employer. You're the one that puts the beer in the hand to keep the hands from shaking. Horrible. One day I had this idea. Bale, sit please. Thank you. Down. I think he thinks I have a dog biscuit. Anyway, and I thought it would be great to put a puppy in the addict's life, right? Mother Nature. Well, guess what? The puppy started taking abuse. And I couldn't let that happen, and I just gave up on life. I exited stage left, bought a camper, went out west, and I didn't like that puppy. I couldn't get a motel room because I had a darn dog. People came up to me, what a cute puppy. Get out of my face. He kept bringing people into my life that I didn't want. I isolated. I could not connect, nor did I want to. Well, all of a sudden, I undercame what I call a positive influence. I was in a campground in Ajo, Arizona. I had almost committed suicide the night before. I couldn't even get that right. And in the morning I woke up, there was a knife on the bed, there was pounding at the door, it was cursed children knocking on the camper door. Mister, we got a dog, can our dog play with yours? Yeah, take him. 15 minutes later, I heard this blood-curdling scream. He was in pain, and I figured my pup, my Booster was his name, was probably dead, hit by a car, because everything in life was bad. I opened that camper door. He was holding his paw up. He was screaming in pain. The children started crying. I started crying, and then I got it. I had resented that puppy, that dog, because he was always happy, and I was always sad. But at that moment, we were both sad. I was in pain psychologically. He was in pain physically. We bonded. I had an epiphany. I call it a Helen Keller-like moment. I slept with that dog in my arms for 3 days. And that dog, my Booster, taught me unconditional love for myself as well as for others. And a miracle occurred. And I call that miracle connectivity. I went from isolation to having a passion in my life, and it was irrevocable change. You see, my Booster took me all over the world internationally. And he pulled me to people, black, white, yellow, tan, Christian, Muslim, Catholic, Buddhist, Hindu, gay, straight, Democratic, communist, socialist. The lines of differentness began to blur, and I started to experience canine-inspired connectivity. You see, the canine-human bond has been around for 2.5 million years. That unconditional love is well known. You know, I once, recently, saw on the internet, you could buy a handbag that says that Dobermans or whatever hate Biden and Rottweilers hate Trump. Well, for me, that's a human perversion of the unconditional canine-human bonds. Sometimes I think that dogs have more dignity than humans. A dog would never market such trash. So a dog is a social bridge. It is a form of connectivity that changed my life. From the streets in Mexico City with children and parents, to Cubans huddled in the street when they were not allowed to interact with tourists, but the police never intervened. You see, I think the world needs a booster in their life. And I want to show you what I call examples of connectivity. I went into Havana, Cuba, communist Cuba under Fidel Castro. We connected. Booster took me into television studios, live television, live radio in Cuba. They opened the classroom doors and invited us in for the students and for the disabled students. We connected. I once read that Bangkok, Thailand was underwater. I experienced the ravages of Hurricane Katrina. I jumped on a plane with my booster and I went to Thailand, never been to Asia. We ended up in an orphanage for children. They had one thing in common, they all had HIV. Some adults maybe shunned them a little. Booster loved them and hugged them. The Thai children surrounded him and connected. When I got home, I went to the post office and I experienced what I called cardio connectivity. Those Thai children drew pictures of my dog. We love Booster. How cool is that? How connected is that, right? I went into the Bahamas. I bought a timeshare there. They allowed me to have my dog. I spent 8 years in the Bahamas, radio, television, classrooms. They said they would never get a disability law there. Guess what? After 8 years, I got a call one day. Hey, Dave, we got our law. Really? Yeah, Dave. I said, does it include service dog access? Hey, Dave, it's all there. We got more media attention with you and your dog than we had in the preceding 30 years. And one time, I bum rushed a Bahamas airplane. I'm in Nassau. I had to get to Freeport. Any airline that flies in or out of the U.S. has to accommodate a service dog, but once you're in the country, you can't tell them what to do. I didn't know how I was going to get to my timeshare. I hid Booster in the back. I presented my boarding pass. They were busy. I got him from behind the couch, ran down the plank and got on the plane. I'm seated with Booster at my feet. The captain leaves the cockpit. He comes up to me. Sir, we don't fly dogs in cabin. Captain, you would kick a blind man off your plane? Well, sir, you're not blind. No, but there's times I can't walk. That dog will pull my wheelchair, and I also have PTSD. He said, sir, I will fly you. Send me documentation. Well, I did. And guess what? When I had to get into Cuba, guess who got me there? We didn't fly there. Bahamas Air. That captain personally arranged for it. When I got home, I sent him a thank you from me and from my booster. Guess what? There's a newspaper story. Man with PTSD allowed to board plane. He said, because of you, Mr. Hawn, and your dog Booster, we've amended our operations manual at Bahamas Air to allow service dogs on all of our flights. How connected is that? We were invited to lecture at UNAM, the University of Mexico City. I met the director at a dog conference in New Orleans. And so we went to Mexico City. We demonstrated Booster in the streets, showing him opening the refrigerator, bringing shoes, taking off socks. And they invited me to a foundation for disabled children. And I will never forget, there was a little boy in the back, so cute, black pants, orange shirt, and his little buddies were saying, you can do it, you can do it. His mother said, Senor, my son would like to pet your dog, but he's blind. So I brought my Booster, I sat him down, and that little boy reached out in darkness, and he pulled his hand back. And he reached out in darkness, and he pulled his hand back. I mean, a dog can bite, and you're blind, that's scary. Booster raised his head and connected with that hand. I went to the front of the room, and another mother said, my son would like to pet your dog too. Sure. Booster was in a down, just like this dog. And this little boy sat on the ground, squeezed him. And Booster had lost an eye due to radiation therapy. He had had cancer. He was a one-eyed dog. The mother leaned over to me, Senor, my son has just lost the eyesight in his right eye to cancer, just like your dog. Now, I was ready to lose it, but I didn't want the children to think that I felt sorry for them. I didn't want to take away their pride or dignity, so I kept it together by the hardest. The bus came and took the children home, and the ladies were so sweet. "Senor, have some chips, have some punch." So to be polite, I grabbed a potato chip. I brought it to my mouth, and I started squalling. They probably thought I was on the finest drugs that Mexico had to offer. Fentanyl probably weakened by comparison. That potato chip was in the shape of a human heart. I think we even connected with heaven above. We connected. They invited me to a disability conference in a little town of Tepic, Mexico. 100 people showed up in an auditorium, television crews rolled. We connected. The mayor introduced me at a press conference, and my dog brought her a basket of flowers to say hello. We connected. I went to Peru, to Lima, and I made a mistake on my Airbnb reservation. Now I'm in a foreign country with a dog that doesn't have a service dog law. What am I going to do? I called the Hilton. We went over and visited them. They opened up the motel room door for my booster. Here he is greeting the lady behind the desk. Well, I was hungry. Went around the corner. They had a Chili's restaurant. They invited me in, and the employees connected with Booster. The Hilton called their PR rep, sent a newspaper reporter out, and they did a special story about my booster. We connected. I read about cloning in a classroom. Fired off an email to Korea. Never thought I'd hear back. I was invited to a biotech in Seoul. They showed me the microscope with the dog's egg, with the needle extracting the DNA, the needle implanting the donor DNA, took me in the operating room, put the eggs in the ovaries of the female dog, and said that the puppies would be born in 63 days. I wanted to clone my dog, but it was $100,000. I didn't have $100,000 to clone a dog. They ended up doing it for next to nothing in the long run. I have 2 clones today. But the Korean newspaper, I called them, and they said they're not going to interview Professor Wong, the professor that cloned the dog, because there were some issues in the past with the man. Guess what? I called 2 newspapers. 2 newspapers showed up at the same time. Here's a copy of the Korean Herald, which is in English. At the top of the paper, it says, President Obama, page 6. Guess who's on the front page in full color in a 5x7? We connected. I used to do bookkeeping at plants, factories around the country, and my boss was embarrassed one day, but I brought Booster into the break room to meet the guys. Well, guess what? He became an honorary factory worker. There he is with his hard hat on, his lunchbox. We connected. We ended up going into hospitals. Booster had his Therapy Dog International certification, met the elderly. He connected. And this is one. I was walking in a park with my dog, and I wanted to talk to this veteran. My father was a Pearl Harbor survivor, so it's kind of a personal thing for me. The gentleman had the U.S. flag proudly on his chest portrayed. He didn't want to talk to me, but he got on bended knee, connected with my dog. In that photo, you will see the dog's tongue kissing the veteran on the lips. Can you connect any deeper than that? And I got to tell you that that ability to connect was a gift, but it was accompanied by an education. You see, I needed an education to use that connectivity. So I read about a university, Bergin University of Canine Studies. Today it's called Bergin College of Canine Studies, founded by Dr. Bonnie Bergin. People come from all over the world to teach and learn about dogs. That was the most amazing experience of my life. The classes that I took were just amazing. And Bonnie says she only expects one thing of her students. That's to change the world through utilization of the canine-human bond. Well, I would like to believe that we lived up to that expectancy. I ended up with a master's degree in Canine Life Sciences with an emphasis on service dog education. And I got to tell you, I got laughed at. You got a degree in Dog 101? I met a young man who knew one of my nieces, and he had recently graduated from a renowned university. I think he had his MBA, went to work in a corporate environment, and he laughed. I said, do me a favor, take out your cell phone, please. Google Davis, space Hawn, space booster. 5, 6, 8 pages on the internet, all over the world. I said, with your degree, if I live so long, let me take out my phone in 10 years and Google your name and see if there's 5 to 8 to 10 pages on the internet all over the world. He looked at me and he walked away, right? At Bergin, Bonnie started the Assistance Dog Institute originally. For 3 weeks, you're the student and you learn how to give the commands to the dog and train the dog. The second 3 weeks, you become the instructor. You teach the disabled how to use their dog. I met this young lady, Elise. Her limbs didn't work. I met her dog. I said, shake, and the dog shook my hand. And you know what? It hit me like a ton of bricks. I shook the dog's hand, but I didn't shake the human's hand. How do you shake a hand that doesn't work? Well, I gingerly reached forward and grabbed that hand and picked it up and shook it. I have never failed to greet a disabled, or as I say, specially abled person ever since that moment in time. And I also want to say that one of my classes in disabilities changed my life at that university. And, you know, how do you train a dog to help somebody with a disability if you don't know how the disability affects the human body? Does it affect the brain? Does it affect the body? Does it affect both? Well, one day, this lady powered herself in a power wheelchair, flowing gray hair, and she looked at the classroom, and Booster was by my side. And when she couldn't say a word, she looked at the screen, and it spoke the word for her. And she had, I believe it was Lou Gehrig's disease, if I'm not wrong, ALS. And she said, I am grateful for my disease. Huh? I almost fell over. I asked Booster to give me a hug because it hit me. How could you be grateful for being virtually paralyzed? She said, I was a high-powered corporate attorney. I was flown all over the world. Money, prestige, but I really never got to be much with my family or my grandkids. Well, my disease slowed me down. So now I'm with my family and my grandkids. And she said, I'll never forget, I live my life on 5 pennies of energy a day. If I try to wiggle to get dressed, I've spent 3 pennies. I've got 2 pennies left. It's not enough to go see my grandson play baseball. So I lay dormant in the bed and they dress me and I see my grandson play baseball. Wow. From that moment forward, I never looked at money in the same regard. I might have valued toilet paper more. I'm more useful than money. I went home, I built a mobile home park. I threw money at that business with reckless abandon. It might as well have been monopoly money. I took every credit card I get my hands on. I don't care if it was 150% interest. I could care less. And I bought every repoed mobile home I could, and I grew that business. And one day a guy came up to me and says, I want to buy your development. It's not for sale. Now, I want you to know, I was on food stamps at one time in my life. I have lived a week on a 5-pound bag of potatoes, okay? Well, I want you to know that he said, I'll give you 2.45. I said, 2.45 what? He said, 2.45 million. Sold. Guess what? I took that money, used it to travel all over the world. And I've spent 10 years of my life, and I wrote a book. It's called My Booster. I would encourage those to get a copy of it. Any proceeds will go to Bergin College to establish a fund for aspiring students that want to learn to train dogs for the disabled, change the world to the canine-human bond. And I've got to say that it's a wonderful opportunity to share that with you. Obviously, it's heartfelt, and if you would like some more info, you can go to www.boostertheservicedog.com. Thank you, guys. Bayo. You ready? Okay, let's go. Up. Give me a hug. Yeah. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, dude. Okay, Bill? All right, let's go. Ready?